The right to protest is supposed to be baked into the DNA of our country. It's one of the ways that we express what it is that we care about. But in a number of places throughout the United States, there have been attempts to criminalize protest. Internationally, did you know that environmentalists have a greater individual chance of dying than soldiers do? And so activism, protest comes at an increasing cost. And we have a person on the show joining us right now who's going to talk about that cost so far. Priya Sawhney, open rescue investigator and social justice activist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on.
Great to have you here. So we've talked with members of your organization in the past. We've shown video of some of your direct action efforts. But tell us about what you've been up to and the legal consequences that you might face.
Yeah, so I am one of 6 open rescue investigators who is currently facing felony charges. And just last week, I was arraigned in Sonoma County for an 8th felony charge, and that one is a felony conspiracy for simply standing on public property of a massive duck slaughterhouse, a farm and slaughterhouse where 1 million ducks are killed every single year. And so, you know, I was part of an action just a few months ago in May where, as you can see, activists locked themselves down actually to this very conveyor belt and tried to rescue these animals. And in the process of doing that, one of them actually almost got killed. And there was a team of another team which rescued 32 ducklings from this farm. And you know, the reason, John, that we go on to farms and slaughterhouses and facilities like this is because we have tried every single other avenue to address the criminal animal cruelty that's happening. We've written letters. We've tried to sit down and talk to the district attorney. We've tried to talk to the police officers, but there's just radio silence. So when we see this whistleblower footage of these ducklings who literally can't stand, they're collapsed under their own body weight, we have to do something about it. We finally just take action into our own hands. And what we've seen time and time again is that despite our efforts to try to have a conversation, we end up in situations where activists are, not only arrested, but they're also criminalized. And for doing what? Standing on public property and for trying to address criminal animal cruelty in California.
So I'm confused. On one level I'm confused. On another level, I have a suspicion of why exactly this is going on. But you were on public property, so what's the justification for the charges? It seems like it would be on its face inadmissible. I imagine that there's probably some sort of connection between these corporations and those enforcing the law in the area. So what are they saying? What's their justification?
Well, the reason that I'm being charged along with 5 of my co-defendants is because they're saying that we're conspiring and that, it's just sort of like a charge that you throw on when actually that's my friend Wayne right there getting arrested for simply standing on public property. He looks so confused, and that's because
he looks pretty conspiratorial.
Yeah, so the reason that they're doing this is because they see us as what they call the head of the snake. They see us as leading this effort, but what they don't realize is that the animal rights movement is growing beyond just people like myself or Wayne or other people who've been doing open rescues for the last few years. And so they throw these charges, felony conspiracy, because they think, well, if we get the small group of people that's leading this, we're gonna stop it. But what they don't realize is that global lockdowns, people are happening all across the world. Open rescues, people going inside of farms and slaughterhouses is happening from India to Australia to Belgium to France.
So, okay, let's talk now about some of what you're saying is deception on the part of those who are lodging these charges against you in terms of violence and threats. So they're saying that some of the people who'd taken part in this action had been violent, had been starting fights or something like that. And you're saying that that's not only not true, but actually hiding the fact that the threats were coming from the other side.
Yeah, so very ironically, in September of last year, at this point, Sonoma County has released 2 press releases basically saying that activists have been, assaulting farm owners and whatnot. The irony of that is that not only is there no evidence that that didn't happen, I was there. We were holding.
There's a lot of cameras.
Yeah, there's a lot of cameras. We're holding white flowers in our hands, and people are being, singing and basically trying to help animals. We're busy doing that. And so not only is there no evidence that that didn't happen, but in fact we have footage of farm owners basically threatening activists and saying like, we're gonna run you over. And even one of the farm owners at Paloma Poultry basically saying like, hey, is there anyone I can pay to run these activists over? Yelling homophobic slurs. And I saw this firsthand at Petaluma Poultry last year, where my friends and I basically had to get out of the way because one of the owners of the farm was just full force driving the golf carts towards us, and we're just, we've trained ourselves, so we know that we're going to be in situations like this. But we know that even if we're met with violence, that we have to carry the spirit of nonviolence with us, and we're just there to help the animals.
Yeah, and I just want to focus 1 second on the particular nature of the threat that you face, that he either wanted to run you down or wanted someone else to run you down. So that by itself is a threat that you would think there'd be some sort of legal consequences for. But in other actions outside of this topic area where people have blocked highways and things like that, there have been calls from right-wing pundits to allow people to drive through the crowd if they want to. Not to mention the fact that Heather Hare was killed by a person driving their car. So protesters have been targeted in this particular way before. It almost seems like those words are chosen carefully to scare you as much as possible. And so you also talked about the fact that one person was nearly killed during this action. So, I mean, what is it like being involved in these actions, knowing that there's a possibility that you could be the targets of violence, that something could go wrong? What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really scary. And I mean, from getting arrested to wondering, like, am I gonna get shot today? Like, these are realistic things that we prepare for. But I think one of the things that keeps us going is we look at the violence that the animals are facing, and they don't have a choice. They don't have the ability to stand up for themselves and to expose what's happening to them. So we are very willing to take these risks because we know that if we don't do it, if we don't blow the whistle on these corporations, then nobody else will.
So speaking of another corporation, so earlier this year you had another direct action that led to some issues for you involving Jeff Bezos.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so actually right after the action where at the duck slaughterhouse, we went to Las Vegas because we heard about Jeff Bezos, who was going to be at a conference, and Petaluma Poultry is an Amazon supplier, so you can buy their products on Amazon. And we all know that Jeff Bezos is the richest man in this world. I mean, just a few days ago, we're hearing about how he's enjoying a nice vacation on his 3-mile long yacht. And at some point we have to hold these powerful individuals accountable. And so we had this opportunity, and I was able to get inside of this conference, and I went up to him with a flower, and my goal was to offer him a flower and say, hey Jeff, you're the richest man on this planet. You're talking at this conference about environmental devastation. You have a chance to do something about this, and more importantly, a chance to help animals. If you want, right now, you could stop animal cruelty at Amazon and be and that would make such a the world's difference. And instead of obviously getting an in-depth response, quickly I was escorted out by security guards. Actually, there's a photo where one of the security guards is reaching into his pocket, and I was like, whoa, what's gonna happen? It's a little scary. I'm just here with a flower. But I spent 3 days in Las Vegas jail for that action, and they charged me with 2 felonies and 1 misdemeanor, and I still have the misdemeanor.
Wow, okay, and yeah, as you point out, he's the richest man. He could lead a 100% ethical leadership of his business, all of that, pay his workers a living wage, all of that, and still be the wealthiest person in the history of the world.
And still be the wealthiest person. Who knows? Amazon is a globe at this point. People look to Amazon as wow, what's this company doing? And so they could set a really, really powerful example. And one of the things that's really interesting is, we always hear from companies well, we don't even know this farm. We don't know anything about this. But the interesting thing is you have more of a connection with this farm than I do as someone who doesn't even consume animal products. So why is it that I'm able to go inside and say hey, I'm gonna take responsibility for these animals that are suffering inside, while you're just hey, I have nothing to do with this, even though you are literally profiting off of the bodies of these animals.
So if someone's watching this and they want more information about either the organization or how they can get involved, what should they do?
Yeah, we are actually gonna be converging in California. So if any of the things that people are hearing are inspiring you, come to California for what we're calling the Animal Liberation California Convergence, where activists are gonna be getting trained to take action like this. And even if you're not an animal rights activist and you wanna learn how to blow the whistle on corporations, this is the place for you. And you can go to type in the URL dxe.io/ALCC. You can sign up and register for the conference. And And one of the things that I'm hoping to do in the next year is to make it legal for Californians to go onto farms and slaughterhouses and rescue animals, and what we're calling that is the right to rescue. So I'm hoping that hopefully, if I'm here back over here in a year, I can be telling you about how we legally established the right to rescue in California, because I'm facing felony charges, 8 felony charges, and I'm excited to go to trial. So look out for that, and hopefully we can give every single Californian a legal right to enter these facilities and rescue animals. Just like I know, John, you would probably break open a car window if you saw a dog trapped in a car on a hot day.
Even if it wasn't a hot day, I just want to pet the dog, honestly.
Yeah, even if it wasn't.
I'm not going to be stopped by glass.
Exactly, and that's what we're trying to do for all animals. They're just not in. They're not dogs, and they're not in. They're not in cars. They're in farms and slaughterhouses.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're successful in that effort. I look forward to you not going to jail. And so, Priya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Here on The Damage Report, we talk a lot about the big banks and their ways of getting rich off the poor. They saturate the market, but there are other options. And I've got info on a socially and environmentally responsible financial institution that has no ATM fees, gives you cash back on every purchase. They even commit 10% of their earnings to charity. It's called Aspiration, and if you go to aspiration.com/TYT to sign up, you'll get these perks, and that's more money to spend or to save or to spend. Just treat yourself.